Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I am Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith, going over the DraftKings main slate, 9-game slate here. Nice change of pace after the showdown debacle that was available last
I
night.
enjoyed it.
Well, yeah, you actually did okay. You dropped something in the Big Win season channel in our Discord. And hopefully, if people follow our advice here and follow your core plays tonight, they can do the same. So the way you can do that is obviously watching this free video. By the way, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you are not already. Both those things help us out quite a bit and let us to keep putting videos like this out. But you can also get updated plays and advice in our free Discord if you come over there. A lot of people there to talk shop, and also you can share your lineups, share your 1v1, 2v2, all that stuff, and then get our updated core plays for the slate. Currently, our DraftKings core plays are free, and you can also hit up our Patreon if you want FanDuel core plays, DraftKings Night Slate core plays, and MMA DFS plays. We'll keep adding to the pile as we get going, and we also will be covering football and MLB as we have in the past. All right, let's get to it, though. The way we break these things down, we go position by position, highlighting our favorite plays and trying to just analyze the slate from a position perspective first, and then end things up with our strategy and flag plant of the day. All right, so at point guard, Jalen Brunson looks awesome. He's a little bit too cheap here against the Bulls. New York is without Josh Hart, could also be without OG Anunoby, so he looks awesome. And De'Aaron Fox is not that far away from him in terms of price or projection. So both those guys look fantastic. They're coming in at mega ownership, both coming in at 38 or more % owned. I don't have any qualms with that. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily pair them. But I don't think there's really a big issue with it. But let's get your thoughts on Brunson and Fox before we dive into anybody else.
Yeah, I mean, they look outstanding. Of course, they're missing key players on their teams tonight with Wemby and Josh Hart, like you said. So no issue with it. I like that Fox has shooting guard, Brunson point guard only, but there are ample pivots in the price range. Like I think Ja Morant in that game against Indiana that has a super high total looks pretty appealing. James Harden at 9.3 with Norm Powell now questionable, midday downgrade, never a good sign. So the matchup against Milwaukee is a very good one. Giannis sitting potentially would make it even better for them in theory. So I like Harden quite a bit as a pivot from those top two, but on their own, really no issue with Fox or Brunson.
Yeah, I think if we're trying to get different at those two spots, it's almost in like the getting too cute territory. They both look so good. If I had to pick one, it's going to be Fox with no Wemby. Obviously, Brunson still has to contest with Cat's high usage. I think Hart not being there kind of makes the conundrum of pairing or not pairing Brunson with Cat kind of not a major issue. Like we talk about this all the time. Do you really want to play Brunson and Cat together in the same lineup? You're just naturally probably cutting your ceiling a little bit, right? So I still think I would definitely consider that, but I'm not as worried about it as I normally would be. If I had to pick one, it's going to be Fox. He's cheaper. He's going to have more usage, more upside in general with no Wemby there. So that's the way I look at it, but you can pair them together. Trae Young is coming in with the second best projection, gets the Magic, which is brutal, and his price is like 1,000 more than both the guys we obviously are liking for clear reasons. Are you interested in him at all? I mean, obviously Harden looks like a much safer play in a way better spot at a similar price point. Do you think that makes Trae completely overlooked, and do you like him tonight?
I don't know. I mean, I think he'll be overlooked naturally. Like I see 18% ownership. I'd be shocked if it was that high on him. Like I really don't see why it would be. Yeah, like they're playing Orlando, one of the worst matchups you can have. I'd just much rather play Harden. I like the spot a lot more against Milwaukee. So I don't really think Harden's going to be that chalky either. We'll see how that turns out. I just think Brunson and Fox are going to get so much ownership among the high-end point guards. And then there's also cheap stuff to consider at the position too. So I could see Harden and Trae Young and others getting squeezed. Morant, I mentioned. Morant might be the third most popular among the pricey ones, which I have no issue with. But between Fox and Young, between Harden and Young, give me Harden, given the matchups.
Yeah, I like the Morant call because it's a similar price point to Brunson. It's completely overlooked. Like you said, game with a 250 total. It's a good spot. Pacers are 11th in pace. Grizzlies are definitely top 3. I know it changes from day to day.
First.
Yeah, I think they are first, but I just didn't know if it shifted before All-Star break. But yeah, like, and Hallie even at 8K, like I don't like both teams are super healthy. They have everybody right now. Even Miles Turner's back for the Pacers. So it's kind of one of those weird situations where, like, if you want to stack this game or just like pick random guys like Morant or Hallie or whoever, you can. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. But do I love playing these guys at when their teams are at full strength? Not really. I think their ceilings are just naturally a little bit capped. But in terms of game environment and price, Morant and Hallie look good. Like, there's nothing wrong with them at all, and they're not even going to be very owned, which is kind of crazy. One guy I want to talk about a little bit though is Luka. Cheapest we've seen Luka in a while, 10.7K. Obviously, he has not done much of anything with the Lakers. Yesterday, he had 40 fantasy points. That was his best game in 3 games with LA so far. He's not going to be on a minutes limit. He did play last night, but he does have a pretty soft matchup against Portland. What are your thoughts here? Like, are we possibly overlooking getting Luka unowned to close out this slate, or are you looking at him as kind of like off limits until he shows something?
No, I wouldn't say he's off limits. It's the thing we always talk about where, like, I'd rather get in on a guy if he's in a slump or something like that while he's low owned. I don't really want to wait for him to explode and then everyone's on him the next time. So I do have interest. We'll see with the injury report. We're still early enough in the day to where the Lakers haven't submitted on the second half of the back-to-back. So if, like, LeBron is out or something like that, Luka's going to gain ownership, but he'll also look a lot better as a play. So it's kind of hard to project him as of now, given the small sample with the Lakers, given that he's coming back from an injury. Clearly not in great shape as, things stand now. And Portland's also been very good defensively for like a month. I don't know how sustainable that is. They're pretty shorthanded tonight in theory, so perhaps not as stingy as usual. I have interest in Luka.
Aiden and maybe no Jeremy, right?
A few other questionables, Robert Williams, Scoot Henderson. So potentially shorthanded. I think it's okay. I just think the cheaper guys are a lot easier to stomach on this slate.
Yeah, totally fair. I don't think I'll be doing Luka at that price with a not so inviting projection, but I think if you want to get in on Luka going off for 60 plus fantasy points when nobody's going to play him, this would be an opportunity to do that. Going down a little bit, LaMelo is a similar case. Played last night, should be limited still, provided he plays, but not like super limited. I'd still imagine 33 or so minutes. And he has a massive ceiling. Denver, 16-point game on the road.
They could also sit him. Like, they won last night, and that's not what the Hornets want to do. So I wouldn't be shocked if he sat tonight at all.
No, I wouldn't either. So I just don't think like LaMelo and Luka are really priorities for me. Obviously, in GPPs, if they're in, you can consider them for sure. I would certainly look at Luka a little bit more just because I think that big game is right around the corner. We already talked about Ja and Tyrese, Halliburton. Jamal Murray looks pretty good here at 8.1K against the Hornets. I'm a little bit wary of this game because it does have a 16-point spread. I think it's going to be a housing, especially if LaMelo doesn't play. And then you have Maxey at 9.6 with Embiid there against Boston. Like, just nothing. Like, there's a lot of spots that just don't feel right to me. So I think, like, at point guard, I really am just going to eat that chalk, and I'm starting with Fox and or Brunson. Are you seeing anybody else as you go down here into the mid-range that you feel like prioritizing tonight?
If he counts as mid-range, I think Simons is an awesome play. 6,500. Like we said, no Ayton, maybe no Grant, maybe no Scoot. Like, the minutes could be sky high for him coming out of the All-Star break. The Lakers played last night. Not a great defensive team to begin with. So even if LA is at full strength, like, I'm still not scared of the matchup. So Simons is a good play as things stand now. I think if Grant and others get ruled out, he's just going to get better and better. So if I'm paying down into the mid-range from the top tier, I think Simons would be my top play there.
Yeah, he looks good there at 6.5K. Nice projection against Lakers, big minutes. Preferably Scoot for sure is out, and Jeremy being out would also be helpful, boost the usage a little bit. But even with those guys in at 6.5K, he's a fair play for sure. Castle and CP3 get a bump with no Wemby. I guess I'm favoring CP3 because he's $1,000 cheaper. I think Castle's safer, but CP3 is the better value right now. Nobody else really feels amazing. I guess Tyus Jones at 5K if Devin Booker's out again. Is there an update on his injury status? Like, obviously it's been a bit since he was out, with the All-Star break and everything. I would imagine he could be back today.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not on the injury report, so.
Okay, yeah, so never mind. Tyus Jones, maybe not. But in that same price range, you do have Lonzo Ball, Cole Anthony with no Jalen Suggs. Those guys are worth a look. Not a ton of really deep value outside of maybe Miles McBride. I suppose we could even look at campaign if he's going to get minutes here, but there's no or OG is questionable and Hart is out. So Miles McBride could be getting an uptick. He left the Knicks last game with an injury, but he has been cleared. So I would imagine he has a pretty darn good shot at 25 plus minutes and could even enter the starting lineup here if OG is also out. So touch on him and any other values down low that you feel reasonably good about.
Yeah, I assume he would start. OG's out. Like, already have Precious surely starting in place of Hart. So Tibbs doesn't really care about positions. He just kind of trusts his guys. So I assume McBride would be next up. If that inspires, I think he's paying for the savings. $700 less is where I'd go as of now. But, Payne still only projects for like under 20 minutes. So not a safe play at all. Good per minute guy, great matchup though. So that's kind of what you're paying for down there. Ty Jerome, maybe not loving it. I think Keon Johnson in tournaments is interesting, given Brooklyn's injuries and how they've dumped Ben Simmons and others like that. The matchup's brutal against Cleveland, but I feel like his minutes should be secure enough anyway. Definitely a tournament play, low-owned guy, not someone I'd be building around. And Jared Butler, same thing. Like, Philly is still without a wing guard. Eric Gordon and there's Edwards out, Kyle Lowry's out. And then obviously Jared McCain. So Butler started in place of Maxey in the last game. I think he still saw around 20 minutes the game before that with Maxey in. 4,100, just another tournament play I don't mind as a value.
Okay, and if Ty Jerome is out, any interest in Sam Merrill?
No.
Who's the other guy that is actually in for Cleveland? I think Strus was missing
Renner.
time. So Strus is going to be back too. So Ty Jerome is questionable. So keep an eye on that, I suppose. Yeah, Ty Jerome at 4.3 would be not so bad if he's in. All right, let's kick it over to shooting guard. We have De'Aaron Fox again up top. He looks amazing. Devin Booker should be in against the Spurs, which could end up being a shootout here. I mean, the Spurs defense was kind of falling apart even with Wemby. So without Wemby, it could be a horror show. Devin looks fine at 9K. Don't think I really feel obligated to do that with De'Aaron at shooting guard. Desmond Bane looks really nicely priced at 7.5K. We always say it. Jaylen Brown, if he's 8K or cheaper, he's always in play. I don't have a problem with Jamal Murray or Donovan Mitchell at their price points. I think I would just rather play Bane or Fox here. And then I'd work my way down to, Simon's at 6.5. Devin Vassell looks really good at 5.8. Don't have a problem with him at all. That's probably where I'm at as shooting guard. Not that those other guys are bad plays by any means. They just don't stand out. I think it starts with Fox, and then maybe Bane would be my second option.
Yeah, really no one different. I think Bane, I prefer Bane to Morant, dollar for dollar.
Sure.
And, he has shooting guard, so that's useful. Fox at the high end, Simons we talked about. I do like the Vassell call with more usage to go around without Wemby, of course. Kobe White's still on my radar at 6'6" against the Knicks, who are missing Josh Hart, potentially without Anunoby. That's two good defensive wings out of the lineup potentially for them. I prefer White at small forward. He's been awful. He's like 4 for his last 28 from the field or something like that.
Yeah.
But can't be that bad forever in theory. So
I wouldn't think.
Given the role without Levine, I'm still into it. The usage has been there. So I'm willing to go back to the well. Game has a pretty high total also. Then if you go down a bit, there's like Quentin Grimes with all those Sixers wings out. He went off in the last game without Maxey and Embiid, but 5K, still pretty cheap, guard forward eligible. Minutes should be safe. I think he started the last game or two, so decent enough value there. Usage is up since he came to Philly, but not a guarantee to continue with all the big three in. And then, Keon Johnson and Lonzo Ball, Mikal Bridges, if Anunoby's out, maybe would look better, but 6'4" is a bit steep for Bridges, I think.
It is. I mean, you got guaranteed minutes there with Bridges. I don't think that's a bad call. I do think like Kobe is fine at 6.6. I do think for like 500 more, I Giddey at point guard at 7.1 just because he has a massive ceiling. Very volatile. We know that. GPP only. I think he's a little bit more appealing to me if I'm going to do that. But
just
honestly,
a positional thing, like Giddey point guard only, White guard forward. So
right. The fact that you can use him at forward is pretty cool. I don't really want to play Bulls. I think the Knicks look awesome across the board. Like, how many Knicks is too many Knicks? Like the Knicks against the Bulls look really, really good. Not super into Chicago if I don't have to do it. Let's see here. Going down, whoever touched on Miles McBride, he looks like a good value at 4K. Knicks in general. Shadon Sharp 5.4, and then Delano Banton is looking okay if Scoot and Jeremy are out again. I think both those guys are viable. I lean towards Banton just because he's gonna, he's been performing pretty well, and we know he's gonna get minutes, and he's cheaper. So I think that is okay. You got to wait though, obviously, till the end of the night to find out if he's going to be viable or a total miss. But could be worth the risk. I don't want any of the Nuggets value because all the Nuggets are back. And who's the guy? Yeah, Christian Brown at 6.5K. I don't think I can do that with everybody back for Denver. Any other shooting guard punts on your radar?
No, shooting guard can fuck itself.
It sure can. All right, small forward, Jason Tatum, 10K. I'm not going to tell you can't play Jason Tatum, but projection's not amazing. Boston's healthy. He's 10K. He's just not on my radar. LeBron James, 10.2, second leg of a back-to-back set. Same deal. I think you can play LeBron, but with Luka there, not really super into it. I think where it starts with me at small forward is going to be Franz Wagner. Looks awesome against the Hawks here. Crushed them, like 54 fantasy points in the last game against Atlanta. So he looks really good. I would definitely, dollar for dollar, I prefer Jaylen Brown to Jason Tatum if you're going to play a Boston player, him or Porzingis probably. By the way, we didn't really touch on him, but Drew Holiday, 4.4K. I think he's an okay value if you want to do that. I don't really want to, but he is in play. But then if Norm is going to miss, Norm's questionable, like you said, midday questionable. Kawhi looks pretty damn good at 7.1. I think if I'm going to pay up, it's Franz, but this doesn't really feel like a pay up position. If I can help it, I think I would start lower, which would be probably Kawhi or maybe somebody like Denny Avdia, who looks pretty darn good here, especially if Jeremy and or Scoot end up missing.
Yeah, I love Avdia as it stands anyway, like without Ayton, 6,300. So his price has come down quite a bit.
Yeah.
He was over 7K like last week. So
right.
Quite a drop for him. Like we said, Lakers are a great matchup. It only gets better for him if Grant is out.
Yep.
So love that call. I'm very into Wagner. I think he might be the best play on the entire slate, 8,600 against Atlanta. An Atlanta team that doesn't have DeAndre Hunter anymore. They don't have Jalen Johnson, who's injured. So not exactly a defensive stalwart to begin with. 8,600. He's shown ceiling. This is really a perfect matchup for him. So I'm happy to pay up for him. I much prefer him to Tatum or Brown or any of those others.
Oh, 100%.
In that range. Yeah, Avdia and White. I think Harrison Barnes, Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, all viable. Barnes nearly 5K, a bit expensive for Harrison Barnes, but
Harry Barnes,
again,
baby.
all these guys. I
Don't
think
you love
Johnson might be a better play just because he has scoring upside. They're going to need scoring without Wemby, of course, but hard to love the minutes for him lately.
Yeah.
Ben Mathurin, like cheap exposure to that Memphis, Indiana game with that sky high total. Minutes have been up for him. He's played pretty well. Miles Turner coming back maybe eats into his usage a little, but 5,200 for Mathurin is just really cheap. So I like taking shots on that for upside. GG Jackson, perhaps another cheap exposure to that game, but the secondary Memphis guys are hard to stomach typically. I think Mathurin's my favorite of the like cheapish ones below 6K. Vassell right there with them, but there's plenty to like here, all things considered.
Yeah, I think we're aligned here. If I am going to pay, it is 100% Franz. And then the only reason why I am not fully in on Franz is because Denny looks so damn good. Like I really like Denny at 6.3. I love the price.
Both.
Yeah, you can. The way my current build has been showing up, I'm kind of being forced to pick one over the other. So we'll just see how it shakes out. But if I land on Franz, I'm not going to be sad. And I really do like Denny to close things out if I stay there at 6.3. The fact that he's 2.3K cheaper just makes him easier to get to. But right now, neither of them are very owned, so that's kind of nice. So yeah, we're definitely aligned there. Just want to quickly check if we're missing anybody. I mean, Rui at 6.1 if no LeBron. I don't hate that. I would rather Denny still, but he's going to gain some steam for sure.
6.1 seems high for Rui, but
yeah. It does seem high, but he's going to get minutes and he's going to get extra usage if LeBron does sit. So I'm not saying it's a priority. I'd still prefer Denny for sure, but I do think he would be in play. And then as we go down here, I mean, Tarian, if Giannis and Dame are out, I think Tarian, he's getting like 30 plus minutes every game right now. And no Bobby now. Bobby is out for the next 25 games. I don't think Prince is the worst value at 4.5K. Do I feel good about him? No. Do I want to play him? Not really. But I think he's okay. In the same vein, 4.4K for Connect. Should I even be talking about him? Of course not.
Kuz would be the guy if Giannis is out,
no,
I assume.
of course. Yeah, 6.5 Kuz is viable anyways because he's going to start and there's no Bobby. But if Giannis is out, like Kuz is probably a core play at 6.5. Matchup with the Clippers, not great. Don't really want to do that.
Yeah, you can argue for the fade. Like if he's going to be
sure.
owned, like if he's chalky at 6,500 against the Clippers without Giannis or Dame, and they get like completely destroyed, that's a pretty intriguing fade. But still
for sure, pivot to Denny. Like if you absolutely can argue that. And I mean, like when we talk about core plays, sometimes like you can still fade a core play. Like if they're going to be insanely owned, that you can be like, yes, I recognize this guy is a great play in theory, but I'm going to fucking fade that guy for these reasons, right? So, yeah, I agree. I think Kuz would look good for sure. He'd project extremely well, but Clippers are good defensively. He'd see a lot of Kawhi, and that wouldn't be good. So, definitely worth noting. All right, I don't see anybody else that I have to play. Aaron Nesmith in that game, 3.7K, not the worst punt. I mean, he's going to get some minutes in a really good game environment. Kind of like in the vein of Keldon Johnson. If we're playing Keldon Johnson at 15 fucking minutes, we can consider Aaron Nesmith for sure. Probably about it. I like the Matherin call a lot. Very volatile, very scoring dependent, but in that game environment, you get nice cheap exposure. All right, over at power forward, Giannis, if he's in, I would imagine to be somewhat limited. He's missed like 2 weeks now, basically. And he might not even play. So he's questionable. Just keep an eye on his status. Obviously, for me, the Giannis thing is more about what it does to the Bucks. Like, are the Bucks going to be viable as far as like value goes? Like, do we want to play Kuz if Giannis is out? We'll have to make the decision. Right now, he does project well, but he is 11.5K, and the Clippers are not a fun matchup. I mean, he's not going to be owned if he's in. But like, what are your thoughts here? Do you actually want to play him if he's active?
Not really. I feel like he is pretty likely to be limited just because, like you said, he's been out a while. Yeah. Missed the All-Star game and all that. Matchups also just bad. Like, I'd rather pay up for Jokic, the Knicks, like we've talked about, Franz Wagner, Luka, whoever, like De'Aaron Fox. There are just other ways to spend. Giannis against the Clippers doesn't seem super likely to break the slate. Like, if it's Dame and Portis out and Middleton's obviously gone, then he has a clear path. But I don't know. I guess if we don't hear anything about the minutes, then you can take a flyer on it, but I'd rather spend money elsewhere.
Yeah, he has not played in 18 days. So
yeah,
I would imagine he'd be limited, plus the matchup sucks, plus he's expensive, and we also have Jokic. So if you just want to get different and you don't hear a limit, sure, you can play him, but I just don't see the point. KD looks like the best spend up over here at power forward at 9.2K. Devin's going to be in, so that gets me off him a little bit. So next up is going to be Banchero at 8.3. Banchero's a better value at 8.3, and they project pretty close. So I don't mind going down to him at all. I think KD probably among the top paying studs at this position looks pretty good against the Spurs here, especially with no Wemby. But if you want to drop $900 to Banchero, don't have any issue there. I just think due to his volatile nature, like he has a ceiling, but Banchero has been very up and down and a lot more down than up. So I would just prefer Wagner for $300 more, but he looks fine. Siakam in a great spot at 7.8K. Don't mind him. Not really that excited to get to Miles Bridges or Evan Mobley. I guess I swear to God, Evan Mobley, every time I don't want to play Evan Mobley, he gets 50. Like he always goes off when I don't want him. But that's probably where I'm at here. I don't think this is a position where I'm personally going to be paying up. But if I did, it's going to be KD or Banchero most likely.
It is kind of tough because I think this is probably the best value position on the slate. So paying up is not quite as appealing because we do have a lot of really good cheap value. But I do think guys like Banchero and Siakam, Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Evan Mobley, like you said, are all pretty appealing. Like the matchup for Mobley is really good against a Brooklyn team with pretty limited size. So I don't mind that. If you want to pay up to be different, this is certainly a good spot to do it, but it's hard to avoid the cheap stuff. Like there's a lot of stuff under 4K. There's a 3K flat guy you can play here. That's pretty appealing tonight.
Yeah, it all starts with Precious Achiuwa at 5.7. Obviously, no Josh Hart, probably no OG. He was going to get minutes anyways, and if OG's not in there, dude played like 42 minutes last game. So we know the way Tibbs works. He's just going to get a ton of minutes. He looks awesome at 5.7. We already talked about Denny. There's Kuz if no Giannis. Like, there's just a lot to like here. Even Cam Johnson at 6K. The matchup against Cleveland sucks, but he's only 6K, and he's going to have a lot of usage. But the big one, honestly, way down here is going to be Jeremy Sohan at 4.5K. He's going to get minutes anyways with no Wemby, but it's possible they go small and he comes in as the 5, which would make him look awesome at 4.5. But he's just going to get run regardless. So I like him at 4.5. I'm assuming the min priced power forward you're mentioning is Mamu.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to depend on the starting lineup here, what they do. Like, obviously, the Suns have Nick Richards on the other side at the 5. If they want to roll out a 5, by the way, revenge for Bismack Biyombo, who signed a 10-day deal. Yeah, so he's there at 3K too. So the thing is, who do they start? If they start Mamu, he's forward eligible, which is cool. You don't have to use him at center and lock that spot up if you're interested in a Jokic or Cat for that matter. So I have a lot of interest if that's the case. If Biz starts at 3, I guess we'll talk about him in center in a second. But what's your feel here as far as like Sohan and Mamu, and do you want to play them together?
I think you can play them together just because they are so thin up front. Like Biyombo, has he even played a minute for the Spurs? I honestly do not know because I forgot he was on the team. Let's see.
Well, he just signed him.
Yeah.
Yeah, he played 8 days ago. Well, yeah, he played. No, he did not play. He was there, active, I guess.
Yeah, so he hasn't played yet.
Right. And he's 32, and he's Biyombo. So.
I'd be a little surprised if he started, but I guess you never know. Like, there's a chance because he is a semi-established NBA veteran with rim protection capabilities. If he starts, I'd probably play him. I would be nervous about playing too much of him at center only.
Yeah.
But 3K flat, historically a decent per minute guy. It's okay. Mamu, like the power forward thing is huge because if it was center only, there's obviously a ton of opportunity cost there. You can play him at 4 different slots with this power forward center thing. So the versatility comes in handy. Sohan has the same positional eligibility. So I think I would be open to playing them both together just because they are so cheap, even if they are slightly negatively correlated. Depends on the ownership. I assume Sohan would be the most popular one if he starts at the 5, and Mamu, he might still get ownership because he is 3K, but kind of depends on how projections will shake out. But both are perfectly fine. There are other cheap guys to consider. I love Aldama again. We talk about him all the time. He's like the epitome of a tournament play, a wide range of outcomes off the bench, but cheap, good per minute. The game environment against Indiana is excellent. So Aldama is someone I'm interested in. Again, I think Trendon Watford is okay, given Brooklyn's shorthanded front court without Ben Simmons these days. He's had minutes off the bench lately. And then I guess you can take a flyer on Jonathan Isaac, given the matchup against Atlanta, but hard to ever feel great about Jonathan Isaac. Oh, and George Niang for Atlanta. He's played quite a few minutes since he went over there, 34 in the last game. Not expecting 38 fantasy points again, but 4,300 starting role for the Hawks. I think it's viable.
Yeah, if he starts at 4, I mean, I don't really like that.
Whatever,
4,300. Still, I don't know. I mean, yeah, if he starts 4,300, you're gonna get that many minutes, okay, but against the Magic, and also it feels chasey as hell. I don't know. For value, like
it's just a low end like flyer. Yeah. You know, I don't think they'll be.
It's value. Nothing wrong with that. Worth noting, the Pacers have been pretty good at defending the 3 when it comes to Santi, but if he gets hot, there's no stopping him. We already know that. Matos Buzelis, 4.7 against the Knicks. I don't mind him. Was horrendous in the dunk contest, but he's actually been pretty good as a real life player and for DFS. So I don't mind going back to the well there. Doesn't look like he's going to be that owned. 13%. That's okay. I don't mind that. Certainly would like him a little bit more than Harry Barnes, who's going to be more owned. So the thing with Sohan and Mamu is, I mean, I don't think I do want to play them together. I think they do. It is a negative correlation, but you can do what you want with that. The thing I will say is, if Mamu does not start, I don't want to play him. I do not want to take the chance of a DMP off the bench. And same with Biz.
There is a chance he would DMP
for sure. There is a real chance both him and Biz don't play if Sohan starts at the 5. It's possible.
I think one of them would have to play just because they
I
don't
would think
have
so.
anyone else, but
I
you
would
never
think
know.
so. I know, but okay, but Mamu has been the backup and he's playing like 4 minutes. So
Yeah.
like he's already not getting burned. So I would think based off of what they've done before, there's a pretty good chance Sohan starts at the 5, and that would make me very nervous to commit to either one of those 3K punts. Just because number one, how many minutes are they going to get? Number two, are they going to one of them probably isn't going to play at all, most likely. So just keep an eye on that. If either of them start, I'm okay committing to the one who starts. That's okay. And if you want to pair them with Sohan, you can do that too. All right, moving over to center to wrap things up here. We have Jokic. We have Jokic leading the charge with a 64-point fantasy projection. He had 83 fantasy points the last time he faced the Hornets. The only issue, this game has already got a massive spread. I think it's a 16-point spread. Denver's at home. They've been on fire. The Hornets just played last night. They might sit some guys. Like this definitely, to me, obviously it's a smash spot. Like Jokic is going to be owned, but it feels like a good spot to not buy into it and playing Jokic at ownership because of the blowout risk. Because like Jokic could easily come in here, get 60 fantasy points through 3 quarters, and then sit the 4th. Like that's how I view this game going. He's going to absolutely smash, but he's not going to get there because he's not going to play the whole game, in my opinion. So just with that in mind, where are you at with Jokic? Are you going to be overweight or are you shying away from here?
So as based on what I'm looking at, he's coming in around like 20% ownership, and I'll probably be around that, maybe a little bit over, just because it is Jokic on a slate with a lot of value. And there is uncertainty. Like the teams that played last night, Charlotte and LA, both looked incredibly rusty.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have expected the Lakers to lose that game as 12-point favorites. Like I know
Right.
Charlotte's on a back-to-back at altitude in Denver, like the worst spot you can get. But you never know how these games are going to go after such a long layoff. So the blowout risk is clear, but I'm not going to let it get me off of Jokic completely. Like I'm still happy to play him in a certain number of lineups. I don't know if he would make like my main single entry build. Kind of depends on how the news transpires and stuff, but I'm never sad about getting to him at 12-5 against Mark Williams, who does not stop anybody. So a scary fade, but not a must play on this slate. And that's because we have other options, especially at this position. Karl Anthony Towns, I assume, is going to be the chalk here against Chicago without Josh Hart, maybe without Anunoby. He's been fantastic. The Bulls allow the most points in the paint per game. Not that that's Towns' game necessarily, but we know he can do that. He's cheap. He's 9,700. It seems like he's been too cheap all season long. So he's pretty clearly the top overall play here on a point per dollar basis. Pairing him with Jokic is appealing if you can find the funds for it. But there are cheaper options here as well that look pretty good.
Yeah, Cat looks amazing. I don't love where the ownership is, but I also completely understand it. Like he's 9.7. He's averaged 73 fantasy points across 2 medians with the Bulls. So like it's definitely as good of a spot as you'd think. Like he's done it. The thing with Jokic too, like if he's actually going to be only 20% owned, like it's never really what you think it's going to be, but like that is a little weird and light. So you certainly could argue that if Cat's going to push like 30%, you can pivot to Embiid, or you can just fade Cat and go up and get Jokic. Like you said, the games do you think you're going to blow out? Sometimes they just don't, you know? And 100% Jokic is in a smash spot. Jokic is he's a great play. I think personally, as far as like building a good team, though, I think I'm going to go away from him. But everybody, this is a big reason why we don't like put like Jokic as a core play. Like if you want to take what we end up putting out as our favorite plays and then go build around that and go get Jokic, that's up to you. You can go get Jokic. So next up here is Embiid. He looks like a pretty good pivot off of Towns, really. I don't love the matchup with Boston, but kind of in the vein of what you just said about like blowouts and stuff. While the matchup doesn't look good, it's still like the Sixers like have to win a shit ton of games just to make the playoffs, basically. And they're certainly going to get up for a game with Boston at home. I mean, what's your interest level here with Joel?
Pretty much zero. But
it's a direct pivot, though, I will say.
Yeah, I mean, you can always play a guy like that who has a nuclear ceiling. I'm not saying he's a bad play. I'm just, as of now, he's not someone that really stands out to me. Just because I would rather just play Towns into ownership, Jokic into ownership. Like, I'll get different elsewhere. They're just in such good spots that I love them. and Embiid is in a pretty terrible one. So
yeah,
not super compelled. I think there is other stuff that's cheaper than him, like Vucevic on the other side of that. Towns game is okay. Zubats, who failed us miserably in the last game before the All-Star break because he got
sure
benched in
did.
favor of Ben Simmons in a game against Utah. But I'm assuming that's not going to happen every single game. Ben Simmons looked terrific, by the way.
He did.
So it kind of makes me nervous to play Zoo after that, after a straight benching. But it was a back-to-back for the Clippers last game before the break. I'm assuming he'll be back to normal minutes, and the matchup against Milwaukee is okay enough. So I don't mind Zoo at 7.5 if people are going to be kind of nervous to go back to that well.
Yeah, Zoo's always fine at 7.5. If no Norm, there's just a little bit of extra usage to go his way. Don't have a problem with that. Yeah, like you said, Vooch, Porzingis, Mobley, all these guys are fine. They're totally fine. The thing with Embiid, he is a bad play. He is a bad play, but he can still work out. And that's what makes him viable in tournaments. It's a terrible matchup. There's a way better player in a way better spot at the same price point. He doesn't project nearly as well as those other top guys, but he is still Joel Embiid. Like, he can still make it happen. So that's why you want to consider it. But everything else is why I don't want to play Embiid. So I'm not actually advocating to play him. I'm just saying, if everybody's going to be on Cat, we should absolutely always consider why we should go to a direct pivot or go pay up to the Jokic or do something different. So like you said before, there's a lot of value here too. We mentioned Sohan. He's definitely in play at forward as well. Donovan Clingan, though, is the other guy at 5.6, coming in with a pretty good projection. Had like 55 fantasy points the last time we talked about him. And I was like, oh, don't play Clingan. Like, I'm willing to admit, I was like not super into Clingan because he's going up against Jokic. But he smashed. What's your interest level again tonight?
Extremely high. I'm going to be well over the field, it looks like, on him. I'm interested to see the ownership just because there is so much to like here, and you can only play 2 of them max on DK. So if people are playing Towns or Jokic or, Biyombo starts or some shit, then who knows what happens with Clingan. I think 5.6 is still cheap for him. He's been excellent per minute. No Ayton, possibly no Robert Williams. Played 31 minutes in the last game with both of those guys out. The Lakers are not an imposing matchup, certainly against bigs. Mark Williams didn't do shit last night, much to my chagrin, but just a good spot for Clingan. I like it a lot. I guess there's foul risk, anytime you're facing a team with LeBron barreling into the paint all the time, but 5,600 is just too cheap. So I think he's a fantastic play and probably a borderline core play for me. I think the only thing that will keep him from being a core play is that he's center only, and there are so many other good plays.
Yeah, the center only thing is annoying, but I agree. I think it's just like you have to decide: are you going to eat the chalk on Cat and then pair him with Clingan, or are you going to not eat the chalk with Cat and pair Jokic with Clingan? Like, that's, to me, like, is it really that obvious and easy? Probably. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. And right now it's Cat and Clingan. And Clingan's not even chalky. Like really, relative to a big slate like this, 13%. Like, that's not that bad. I don't have a problem with that at all. So Clingan, Sohan, these guys both look awesome. And then up top, it's just Jokic and Cat for me. Is there anybody else down low? I mean, Edie at 4.7, I don't hate that if you want to get a little bit different. He's just in a really good game environment. Miles Turner's back at 6K. I think he's okay too. He's obviously in that price range of pivot off of Clingan if you don't want to eat into the chalk. Good note on the foul trouble. Like, if LeBron does play, that is a thing. Like, that could be a problem. Both he and Luka do still take it into the paint quite a bit. So that is worth noting. That said, that's kind of where I'm at. Is there any other value that you like here?
I think you can take a shot on Okongwu just because he's been quite outstanding since he got promoted into the starting unit. But the matchup against Orlando is pretty brutal. Still some meat on the bone at the price. So I think he's viable as a result. Jared Allen, similar. The matchup against Brooklyn's good. Allen just doesn't have a huge ceiling with the Cavs in, but maybe the revenge factor against the Nets puts him over the top. I don't hate that as a differentiator in tournaments. Precious, rather play him at power forward, obviously. That's probably it. Like, there is a lot to like here, but the 3, Towns, Clingan, and Jokic, are kind of hard to overlook. Like, I just want to play all 3 of them if I could.
I know, I do too. All right, that does it for our position by position breakdown. Let's wrap things up with our overall strategy and our Flag Plant play of the night.
Yeah, so I guess the question, like you said earlier, might be how many Knicks is too many Knicks because they are shorthanded. They could be even more shorthanded. We know the starters play a shitload of minutes anyway. They're playing Chicago, so it's one of the best matchups you can get. I'm considering splitting up Towns and Brunson just because they're both going to be owned, and playing them both together into ownership it's okay. I just don't know if I want to do it on such a big slate. I'll say my Flag Plant. I'm going to try to go not too chalky with this.
Don't you dare.
I think the matchup for Mathurin is excellent. Like Memphis allows a lot of spot up shooting. Indiana has a 124-point team total and they're underdogs. So this game could be a wild, high-scoring shootout. Don't love that it's the first game of the night, but I'm hoping it's just a slate without a lot of late-breaking news, and he's cheap. So Mathurin, as a currently low-owned salary saver, looks pretty good to me.
Yeah, I'm okay with Mathurin. I don't think he's really going to make my initial build. If I'm doing a lot of lineups, I would like to get a little bit of exposure to him and just that game in general, just because I feel like if I'm like hand building or if I'm like working off of an optimal lineup, I'm not really going to get there. But if I'm doing a lot of lineups, I think getting exposure to the highest total game of the night is probably a good idea, right? If I had one Flag Plant, I think it's going to be Denny Avdia, just because there's going to be some ownership going to Franz Wagner. Denny's too cheap, and plus more usage coming his way automatically with no Ayton, and possibly way more with no Scoot or Jeremy. The other thing is just strategy based. It's going to be, I'm going to eat certain chalk and feel really good about it. I'm eating the Fox chalk. I'm eating the Cat chalk. I'm not going to play Jokic because I'm just going to buy into the blowout risk and the price factor. I just think, like, obviously he can absolutely smash and nuke the slate. I'm just going to bet that he won't, because I think Cat gets me a better build. The other thing is, like you said, I'm not going to pair Brunson and Cat together either. If I'm doing a lot of lineups, I think I'll leave it alone. Like, it's okay if they end up together because they both project like gods on this slate. But if I'm doing a single entry, I'm going to probably just pick one. And right now I'm going to lean towards Cat. All right, that does it for us. Hopefully this helps you out. If it does, smash that like button. If we get 30 likes on this video, we will give a free FanDuel package over on Patreon. You can check that out yourself with the link in our YouTube channel, and also come join us on Discord. It's all free over there. You can come and get our DraftKings core plays, and if you want DraftKings night slate picks, MMA DFS picks, and FanDuel picks, you can hit up our Patreon. Thanks for watching, and good luck.